Am I the asshole for moving back into my apartment after my fiancé gave up my space in her house? My girlfriend, 36F, of 3 years and I, 37M, just got engaged a couple months ago. I still have a lease on an apartment until September 31st, but I've been slowly moving into my fiancé's house since our engagement. She has 2 kids from a previous relationship, 19F and 16M, and they both have rooms at her house even though her daughter has been living with her boyfriend for a year. There is 1 spare bedroom at her house, and before I moved in I asked if I could turn that room into a gaming, hobby room so that I could have a space in the house that I could kind of call my own. She did not have a problem with this. I have already been contributing to some bills and other household expenses since I've been living with them pretty much full time now. So, over the past few weeks, her son and I have been bringing over my gaming and hobby stuff and putting it in that room. He and I share a lot of the same interests, so it's actually been a pretty cool bonding experience for the 2 of us. Well, last week her daughter came over and told my fiancé that she's pregnant and wants to keep the baby. She also said that she and her boyfriend can't afford to live on their own and afford a baby, so they want to move back in with my fiancé. My fiancé agreed right away and she told me about it after the fact. She also told me that I would have to move all of my stuff out of the spare room because that would now be the baby's room. I was pretty disappointed because her son and I had already put a fair amount of work into that room, but it's still her house and her daughter, so I didn't really feel like I have a say in the matter. So, this past weekend, her son and I moved everything back to my apartment. I have been staying at my apartment since then and I'm now considering extending my lease for another year. My fiancé and I had planned on having a spring wedding next year, but she said that with her daughter's pregnancy, the wedding will probably be delayed until next fall at the earliest. When I told her I was considering extending my lease so that I would have space of my own since it sounds like her place would be pretty crowded for the foreseeable future, she did not like my idea. I explained to her that I need to feel like I have space of my own, and that's not going to be possible at her house right now. But she accused me of ditching out just because life got a little complicated. She said that I should be doing everything I can to save money for our wedding and honeymoon and that throwing money away on a lease when I could live with her for much cheaper is a stupid idea. But to me, the conditions of me moving in have drastically changed. I was looking forward to sharing interests with her son, but now that has been taken away from us and 2, eventually 3, more people have been added to the house. I don't really know what this means for our relationship just yet, but I already feel like that house will never really feel like it's my home, too. Run. NTA. Not the asshole seriously, not your circus, not your monkeys. I hate to say it, but your fiancé wants you there to foot the bill for daughter, baby and baby daddy. Keep your own place. You will quickly find yourself taking care of a baby. If daughter isn't responsible enough to take care of herself and baby, she's going to be leaving said baby to go play while you 2 take care of said baby. You are not married. It sounds like she's not committed to you. Therefore, you need to take care of you. A committed relationship means just that, commitment. She will be sorry, by the way. You sound like a catch. I'm married to a gaming dude. She will end up caring for her grandchild. I've seen this so many times. Is the daughter's room so small that it would not fit bed for the baby? Maybe it is a cultural thing and it goes beyond me because of that. Where I live it is more common to keep the baby in parents' bedroom. No assholes here, this is just one of those things you talk out. Both of you have feelings about what has happened that's outside of either of your control. Going with nah. She isn't in the wrong to want to help her daughter out and it sounds a bit like you got one foot out the door. At some point the decisions will have to be to prioritize the relationship or prioritize the individuals. You are both doing the later right now and eventually the relationship will probably drop. Am I the asshole for denying an older woman shelter from a storm? I, 23F, am an avid hiker in Australia. Last week I encountered a middle-aged woman, around 50 years old, as I was coming off a trail. She was walking in my direction as I came out of the bush. It was strange to see her, the sun was almost down and the weather was starting to turn. Also, this was an intermediate collection of trails at best, difficult even for me at worst. And she didn't look super athletic. Point is, my weird radar was going off already. She walked up to me and stopped, standing too close for my comfort, gestured toward the clearing where my car was parked, and asked whether it was my car. No greeting or anything. When I looked over, something made me uncomfortable. There were no cars other than mine in sight. The trail I was on isn't crazy far from civilization, but it's not a walk away, one of those highway rest stops that's there for the trail and a few parking spots. No way she could have got there without driving. I let her know that, yes, it was my car, to which she responded something like, "Perfect, there's a storm coming. I can't be caught in it and I need to get home." She was very matter of fact. It seemed like she had already decided what would happen. Without waiting for my response, she started striding for my car. I am glad I always lock my doors because she would have hopped right in the passenger seat had the door opened. As she was walking over to it, I went after her trying to explain that I wasn't sure it was a good idea for her to hitch a ride, asking why she was out here in the first place. I was talking to a brick wall until she realized the car was locked, at which point she turned around with this look of anger and frustration on her face. She starts ranting the same stuff as before. "I need to get home. A storm is coming. I cannot be caught in it. Why don't you get it?" I was very confused at this point, and a little scared, as this woman was now a barrier between me and my vehicle. I told her something like, "I'm sorry, but I don't feel comfortable with having a stranger in my car." She stared me down for a few seconds, I guess trying to gauge her chances at asking again. And just like that, the anger drops from her face and she's silent. I was really uncomfortable. I asked if I could call someone, if there was another way to help. She starts walking towards me, scary, but then right past me. I'm still asking her questions, then just saying things like, "Hello," and, "Excuse me," no response. She walked to the other end of the rest stop and maintained eye contact with me as she sat down on a log, then just stared at nothing. I didn't follow her. I got into my car really shaken up and drove away. As soon as I was back in cell range I called fire and rescue. They said they would send someone out. I was scared for my safety in the moment, but she was just some woman alone in the middle of nowhere. Am I the asshole for refusing this strange woman a ride, shelter in my car? Not the asshole. The gift of fear is a real thing. Not the asshole you called for assistance for her as soon as you were able. Good. Was there a storm coming? It would be an indicator if the woman was more or less stable, mentally. I can tell her attitude rattled you. You don't owe some random demanding woman a ride. Ever. But, was a storm coming? Not the asshole, of course. In my country, women are sometimes the bait for traps like this. Someone could have been hiding and waiting for you to open your car so they can steal it. Also, you called services to pick her up. I think you went above and beyond. Not the asshole. You don't just walk up to a stranger's car and try to get in. Very worrying behavior. Sure, she might have been innocent and normal, but given how she acted, she also might not have been. Sounds like you made a reasonable judgment based on those odds, and beyond that, you called for help for her afterwards. Good on you. Not the asshole. Am I the asshole for telling my friend she's too basic to be a model? So some backstory, I've been modeling with an agency since I was 16, in model standards my career is successful. I'm 21F now and somewhat taking a break to focus on school. I've known my friend 21F. She is 5 feet 5, mid-sized, and looks like your average person, important for later, for a few months now, and the topic of modeling came up. It came up that I used to model full-time and just recently slowed down for school. She asked what agency I'm with and I told her the name, and told me that she wanted to join that agency and do high fashion work and how lucky I was. I shrugged and told her good for her, but she noticed something was up and asked why I was acting like that. I told her it was nothing, but she kept pushing and pushing till I told her modeling isn't all fun and games. I told her the truth about the industry and how toxic it is. How on the outside it looks like it's changed but it hasn't. How I've been harassed by agents for my hip measurements being 35.7 instead of 35 and constantly being rejected for things out of my control. I also told her about the pay and how it isn't this huge paycheck right after but very random, and there were months I had to stretch the paycheck or get an advance for a smaller amount for fees. When I told her there were covers, shows of done for pay and exposure, she didn't believe me and called me a liar. She then goes on to talk about Lily Rose Depp, Kendall Jenner, and how they get paid millions for their work. I told her they are firstly nepo babies and secondly the top 1% of the industry, and it can take the most amazing model years to get there if they even get that lucky. She kept saying that isn't true and those girls just aren't good models, and how once she gets there she'll make it to that level. This is where I snapped and told her she's not even tall enough or unique for runway work. She once again brought up Lily Rose Depp and how she's walked for Chanel multiple times even though she's short. I once again told her to remember who her parents are and the connections she has. She then said the industry isn't like that anymore. This is where I went off and said the industry hasn't changed like that. That there still isn't a market for petite midsize girls, and she isn't big enough for plus-size modeling but not small enough either. I mentioned how if they made such a fuss about a 0.7 difference in my hips, why would they care about her? She has no connections to help her on the runway, and she is a normal person, and that commercial work is the only chance she has at modeling. After this she called me a jealous hater and stormed off. She hasn't talked to me since. This is where I feel like I am the a-hole for being so harsh and telling her that she'd fail in HF and that her only chance at success is with commercial modeling. I asked another friend and she said I should have just went along with what she was saying even though I knew she was completely wrong. Gotta admit the title almost had me. I thought you were a shallow person insulting your friend by how it's written, but not the asshole, you're just being honest. Not the asshole she wanted to argue with you about something you have experience in, where she does not. Sounds like she needed a reality check. Not the asshole, as the truth hurts. Sometimes it's best to be honest and brutal about it. Modeling is a grotesque industry that is very harsh to people, and you just scratched the surface at what she might encounter. Smile and say, oh, good luck. The agency has a good representative. Shrugging and changing your demeanor enough that she noticed you seemed to have more to say opened up this whole can of worms. Also seems like she was itching to prove you wrong. Not the asshole. It's refreshing to hear people telling the truth no matter if it hurts. Am I the asshole for refusing to let this specific veterinarian look at my cat? I have beautiful 2-year-old ragdoll cat, Kamau, that I absolutely adore to peace. I first got her when she was 1 week old as a high school graduation gift from my parents, and she has been one of the greatest gifts that I have ever gotten in my life. Especially since I have been known to be extra sensitive to things, as I tend to get really stressed and emotional for the littlest thing. So my cat being the affectionate fluffball that she is has made my mood so much better. And honestly, I have to admit that I do tend to spoil her a lot, and not really mind spending quite a bit on her, which I don't think is a problem, because it's money that I earned from my own job that I'm using to spend for her anyways. That also means that I don't mind spending quite a bit to get her the best care that I can, so that I can feel comfortable knowing that she is in good hands. So, here was the problem. Kamau got sick and I was about to head to my normal veterinary when my mother told me that she knew a Chinese vet that her friends was good friends with that she recommended that I go to. Especially since my mother mentioned that she was tired of me spending too much money on those white doctors, and she wanted me to go to a doctor that would be cheaper. I was really hesitant at first and was stressing out, because I didn't know who this person was. Didn't trust it so much since I believed that cheaper isn't always better, especially for pet care, and that I was worried about Kamau as well. But my mother insisted that I could trust the vet and to give it a shot. So, I did, and honestly, I think I may have overreacted here. When I went over to the veterinary that my mother recommended, I saw that my cat was curious about a bumblebee and was mewing and staring at it, which was so adorable. But when the vet came to check us in, I saw that same bumblebee fly on top of his clipboard and he crushed it with his pen. Like, jab his pen into the bee and even twisted the pen on the bee before flicking it off the board. And this horrified me, to the point that I was about to cry and feel like throwing up. I quickly excused myself, apologized, and told the vet that I need to go. And I sort of left in a hurry, and decided to go to my normal veterinary instead, and got her everything that she needed when the doctor told me that she had a respiratory infection. Later, my mother caught wind of what happened with the Chinese vet, and when she asked me to clarify what happened, I told her what happened and she was really angry at me. She was scolding me about how rude that I was to the Chinese vet, about how I made her a laughingstock among her friends, and told me that she was so tired of me being so overly sensitive about everything since I caused her a lot of trouble this time. I honestly feel really guilty about the whole thing, and I feel like I'm on the verge of crying now. Am I wrong, and did I really overreact? Not the point, but a kitten should never be separated from its mother at 1 week old. Nah. It's not uncommon for vets to be particularly concerned with suffering and euthanasia. I have noticed this in 3 vets I know. If the bee had to be killed, because of allergy, or a sick, vulnerable animal nearby, then it's common for vets to kill insects more quickly and violently, thoroughly than most people. They want to make sure the bee is completely dead before it has time to feel any pain. It's a different kind of compassion. Still, choose a vet you are comfortable with and can communicate with. That's most important. But it helps to remember that death is a daily part of a vet's life, so sometimes their perspective might be different. Not the asshole. I don't think a veterinarian killing a bumblebee was something that really reflects badly on them, but it's your choice who you do business with. This person isn't entitled to your business because your mom recommended them. Not the asshole. It's your cat. If you didn't feel comfortable over there, you have every right to take him somewhere else. No question about it. However, you leaving because he killed a bee is a bit of an overreaction in my opinion. I can understand it being a bit disturbing to see, but for you to be horrified by it is maybe a bit much. You could have tried to stay and ask him about it. And if his answers didn't satisfy you, you could have still left. How does the fact that he's Chinese matter?